Rui Pedro Teixeira Mendonça was born on January 28, 1987, the son of Filomena Teixeira and Manuel Mendonça. Rui had a sister called Karina. It all started on March 4, 1998, in a village called Luzada, in the Porto region, in Portugal. There was the home of the Teixeira Mendonça family. They used to lead a comfortable and peaceful life, but everything changed from one moment to the next. It was a Wednesday, around 2 in the afternoon, when Rui decided to take advantage of the time between lunch and school to ride his bike a little. He wanted to go out with his close friend and family acquaintance, Afonso Dias, who was 21 years old at the time. This age difference attracted a lot of attention. After all, an 11-year-old child wouldn't be expected to spend their free time with an adult 10 years older. But it turns out that Afonso was known to the family and even frequented the Teixeira Mendonça house, being described by everyone as the boy with the simplest financial condition and childish behavior for his age. Afonso even states that he met Rui after obtaining a driver's license in a driving school where Filomena, Rui's mother, worked, and after that, the two maintained a friendship that was very open to the boy's family. On the day in question, Rui went to his mother's work using his bicycle. It was in front of her house, and he asked if he could go out with Afonso. Filomena denied it, saying that it was better for him to stay there, cycling in a quiet area that was behind her office, and was also a common place where children played. After that, Rui would go straight to school. But that wasn't what happened, because shortly after, around 6 p.m., the mother was surprised by a call from the school saying that Rui didn't attend class that day. She went into complete shock. After all, this had never happened before. Quickly, she went looking for the boy, didn't find him, informed her friends and neighbors, and they started looking for the boy around the village. A man, who was a close neighbor, appeared saying that, at 3 in the afternoon, that is, just an hour after Rui had spoken to his mother, he found the boy's bicycle thrown in a patch of tall grass, in a place where other witnesses had also seen Rui cycling earlier. The strangest thing is that it seemed as if the bicycle had been placed there at that point precisely so as not to be seen. As a result, the family members finally called the police, who, in fact, according to reports, had treated the case with some ill will at various times. We'll talk about that later. In any case, the search for Rui continued throughout the night that day, and nothing was found. They had already wasted a lot of time when, just the next day, the police officially declared the boy missing. At this point, the family was already desperate and didn't know what else to do, other than question a friend, Afonso Dias. So everyone went straight after the young man to see what he knew. According to the police themselves, when being questioned, Afonso was behaving in a somewhat strange way. First, he expressed surprise upon learning that the boy had disappeared, and then he responded with some calmness, saying that he didn't know anything and that he hadn't seen the boy for days. However, other children who were playing nearby were questioned and revealed that they saw Rui in the passenger seat of a black car that passed nearby, and the driver of that car was Afonso Dias. Other people also revealed that they saw the same scene. They discovered that the vehicle, in reality, was a black Fiat Uno belonging to Afonso's brother, which, according to some sources, Afonso had allegedly borrowed to take the car for an annual government inspection, even though there was no evidence that he had attended this appointment. Then another statement took place, and because everything was very suspicious, Rui Pedro's grandfather confronted Afonso right outside the police station, wanting to know where his grandson was and even offering a large sum of money for him to tell the truth. Then, Afonso started to cry, saying that he didn't know, but that, if they wanted to find Rui, they should close all borders. This statement made some people understand that the boy could be taken out of the country. It was only with the testimony of Rui's cousin, João André Mendonça, that things escalated to a greater proportion. João André revealed to the police that days before his disappearance, Afonso had invited Rui and him to go by car to meet a prostitute. At the time, João André said that afternoon he couldn't go out because his mother wouldn't let him, but that he didn't know if Rui had been taken to the place. He also stated that since this chaos began, he was being threatened by Afonso for not making this information public. To make matters worse, while João André was talking to the police, Afonso appeared uneasy for the first time, saying things like, "Shut up," or "Don't get involved." Everything indicated that Afonso would indeed be involved in this and that the holes would be much deeper. At that point, family members were already thinking about several horrible things, such as kidnapping, slavery, murder. Basically, overnight, their lives had become a complete nightmare. And believe it or not, even with all these reports against Afonso, he left the police station free, as if nothing had happened, because the police decided to treat this case as if it were a simple disappearance, as if he had gotten lost and was going to show up. As a kidnapping, one reason for this, according to police, was the lack of reliable clues. But for the family, and obviously, negligence appeared, because as long as they could save their son, they were not going to rest. Of course, it didn't take long for the case to catch people's attention, as disappearances of infants were not common there. So, with the story appearing on TV and in the newspapers, there were also several people claiming to have information about Rui. Some of these people called claiming to have seen the boy in various locations, but none of these reports led to any evidence. They even sent a video that supposedly showed the boy Rui in a hotel in Spain, but it was not confirmed whether it was really him. The most striking report was of a specific call that Filomena received, in which there was a child on the other end of the line with a voice identical to Rui's, screaming and calling for his mother without stopping. The call didn't last long because, apparently, someone took the phone and hung up, but it was enough for her to say that she was sure that it was her son's voice. As frustrating as it may be, the authorities handling the case failed to trace this connection, which was the final straw for Rui's family, who began to publicly criticize the Portuguese authorities' stance. A month after the boy's disappearance, a journalist who was visiting Disneyland in Paris took a photo while riding a Pinocchio ride with his family. Sitting right behind him, he identified a boy who looked a lot like Rui, next to a bald man in a red jacket. There was an analysis of the photograph, but they were unable to reach a definitive conclusion. It seemed that nothing led to any concrete evidence about what could be happening to the boy. Well, that was at least until September 1st of that same year, because that was when the American police discovered a gigantic shared network of child pornography.
Wonderland Club. This international group consisted of accumulating and exchanging files of children in sexual situations, being organized in a confidential and restricted manner, at a time when the deep web as we know it today did not even exist. To give you an idea, only members who were recommended by another member could enter this community, requiring them to contribute 10,000 files upon entry. It is horrible to imagine that this exists and that in this 1998 operation alone, hundreds of thousands of media containing more than 1,200 exposed and exploited children were confiscated. Until now, the Wonderland Club had been the largest organized pedophilia scheme ever recorded in the history of humanity, and in the midst of this confiscated material they found real photos of Rouet. There was also a very strong explicit video of him being abused by several guys. After intelligent analysis using a feature mapping program to recognize faces, it was confirmed that the one in the video looked like this and Rouet Pedro. Imagine the situation of the family who had to follow this investigation, watch all these videos, and in the end ensure that unfortunately it was the boy Sim. As a result, many believed that he would probably have been killed after this, as his case was becoming increasingly popular, and because of this, the investigations by the national police, which were already slower than normal, ended up slowing down even further. Years passed and Rouet's family didn't give up, and in 2006 they finally decided to hire a private investigation team on their own to see if they could get anywhere, and it was because of all this effort and pressure from who followed the case, who gathered several clues capable of causing Afonso to be indicted. Years later, in 2011, there was a trial in court with more than 50 witnesses interviewed, including a woman named Alcina Diaz who used to be a prostitute at the time of the crime, and her face was not officially revealed. Alcina said that she had already tried to testify when all this happened, but her report had not gone ahead. She said that, on the day it happened, she was there at her workstation on a road outside the city when she remembers a man who identified himself as Afonso arriving in a car with a boy. According to Alcina, he wanted to pay her to have sex with the boy, but the boy was terrified and crying. Then she asked if his mother knew he was there, and he said no. In this case, she would have gone with Rouet to a more private place and would have faked a situation so that the boy could leave. When asking Afonso how old the boy was, he replied that he was old enough and left with Rouet in the car. Other people who were children at the time were there near where Rouet was playing and testified, saying they remembered Afonso appearing there and approaching the boy. Rouet's younger sister said that a year before the incident, Afonso had taken several photos of her and her brother. She even showed the photos in court. The most unbelievable thing is that, after all this, they still acquitted Afonso due to lack of tangible evidence. But the family appealed, and the lawyer managed to have Afonso charged with aggravated kidnapping. Only in 2014 was he sentenced to more than 3 years in prison, based on Alcina's testimony. Even so, the courts understood that they were unable to incriminate Afonso for what came later, that is, Rouet's disappearance. Before being arrested, Afonso gave a television interview claiming innocence, calmly saying that he regrets nothing in the process. If he could have done anything differently, he would have never had anything to do with the Teixeira Mendonça family, because now his life was being destroyed. According to him, the real culprit would go unpunished. The following year, in 2015, he was arrested and served just 2 years in prison, a third of his sentence, for good behavior. The last update on the case was in 2018, when people filmed an adult Portuguese man the same age as Rouet, who physically resembled him. He said his name was Pedro, but according to authorities, the man was identified as a homeless man. It has been 24 years since Rouet's disappearance. Since then, his mother still hopes to find him. In 2019, Rouet's presumed death was declared by the courts, which means that the individual is presumed dead and there is no longer a need for searches. Even so, Rouet's mother keeps his room the way it was the day he left and remembers her son daily.